We're learning of a shakeup at the State House of Representatives, where reportedly Maui Representative Joe Souki is gaining momentum to replace Calvin Say as Speaker of the House. Our partners at civilbeat.com report that Souki now has the support of 28 representatives, which are said to include Democrat dissidents as well as all House Republicans. Now, there are 44 Democrats and 7 Republicans in the 51-member House, which means if Souki does indeed get all of those votes come January, it could end Calvin Say's 13-year run as Speaker, the longest in statehood. Now, Souki was Speaker before Calvin Say. And joining us live over Skype with more is civilbeat.com political reporter Chad Blair. Good morning, Chad.
Good morning, Mahealani. How are you today?
I'm good. And let's talk about what's happening in the legislature. So the vote is going to be in January, right?
That's right. That's traditionally when the vote is held, on the opening day of session, when both the Senate and the House pick their leadership. In fact, 2 years ago, when Calvin Say was running for re-election, we didn't know if he was going to get the job until January. Now, Joe Souki does seem to have the votes. Apparently, 28 House members have signed their names, put their signatures down and said, we're going to back Joe Souki. But, of course, that includes 7 Republicans. So the big question is, did he promise something to the Republicans?
Are you hearing of any promises? And if there were, this certainly would ruffle some feathers of the Democratic Party, wouldn't it?
There's no question that the Democratic Party would not be very happy about it. They do have the majority here in this state. But remember, it's not terribly unusual for this to happen. And remember, on Friday, the Senate actually gave Sam Sloan, the lone Republican, a vice chair position, something they hadn't done in nearly 20 years, and before that in 30 years. In the House, though, I can't remember the last time a Republican served in leadership, at least in the 10 or 12 years that I've been covering the legislature. So we're going to have to see whether a Plum Committee assignment is going to go to a Republican.
Certainly would be historical given our climate these days. Now, on a general election day, 3 states legalized same-sex marriage, and is Hawaii not far behind?
Well, according to national experts, there's at least 7 other states, and Hawaii is one of them, that appear to be next for a gay marriage. But it may not come from a ballot initiative. In other words, voters wouldn't be voting on the issue. Because we amended our Constitution back in 1998, we gave the legislature the power to reserve marriage to opposite-same couples. In theory, that means the legislature also has the same power to expand the definition of marriage and to give homosexuals marriage rights. So that is what local advocates are going to try and persuade the legislature and the governor to start looking at.
So do you think this is going to be a hot-button issue this come January?
Well, it depends. There's negotiations going on right now. There is a sense you don't want to push it too fast. We just got the civil unions law in place back in January. We could do this in 2014, for example. But there's no question that there seems to be a sea change happening nationally, and one wonders whether that's going to wash over Hawaii as well.
Finally, Chad, let's talk about all of that money that the TV stations raked in during the general election. I know our bosses were probably happy about it, but what kind of money are you talking about?
We're talking $14 million divided among the major TV stations and cable here in town. That seems like a lot of money, but in fact, not as much as was expected. And that's because Hawaii was not a swing state in the presidential elections and because our congressional races really weren't that close. So even though $14 million seems a lot, and even though it seems like we saw a lot of TV ads right here on KITV for politicians, it's not nearly as bad as it could have been.
Wow, so we could have seen even more if there were some really tight races then.
That's right, but it was a washout. As you know, Mazie Hirono, it wasn't even close with Linda Lingle. Same with Tulsi Gabbard and Kavika Crowley, and Colleen Hanabusa handily reelected over Charles Deschutes.
All right. Well, Chad, hope you have a great Thanksgiving.
You too, and we'll see you again next week.
All right. See you on Monday. And
Bye-bye.
You can find the complete stories that we just discussed on civilbeat.com. Moving on.